midnight rampants for Thursday, September the 25th. Again, every night we're going to meet at midnight and we're going to discuss topics that are on our minds. Things that may not necessarily make the news, and if it does, there's really not a detailed explanation. But tonight we are going to discuss and dive into Candace Owens' videos. I think whenever she speaks, we should listen. And of course on here, we're going to have an open and honest conversation. We're going to listen, learn, and we're going to comment on what Candace is saying. So I have the video in queue. And we're going to start it. She dropped this video today. And let's get it going.
Guys, it is Wednesday, and I have a lot for you today because you're not going to be surprised to hear that the FBI is FBIing. That's what they do. And that's what they want to happen with the Charlie Kirk case. Of course, this was inevitable. I got to tell you all about that. Also, I want to open up to you guys about this overwhelming sense of doom that came over me about 10 days prior to Charlie Kirk's assassination. The story's kind of unbelievable, but I think it's important to share, especially with the way that they're traveling here, the FBI is traveling, trying to shut this case down. And it is also somewhat related to another explosive story that I have for you today, because do you remember Thomas Matthew Crooks? Probably not, because oddly, the feds told us that, hey, don't even worry about that 20-year-old who got up on a rooftop and tried to assassinate President Donald Trump, right? That story just got buried. Well, today we have some exclusive information about him, never before seen footage of Matthew Crooks, and it's going to be just the beginning of our coverage regarding what we know. So welcome back to Candace. Okay, so let's start with the breaking news. I don't even know if it's considered breaking news when it comes to the feds. Like, I don't think it's breaking news. I think it's just the news. This is what they do. Well, I have it now on a very well-placed authoritative source that the FBI is putting an absurd amount of pressure right now on the authorities in Utah and also the rest of the government in Utah to come out and to say that the Charlie Kirk case is closed. They want it over. They want Charlie's assassination to be officially ruled lone gunman. It was a lone gunman that did that. Nobody else is involved. Now, why would they? Why would they want that, right? What are they saying, at least to the authorities? Are they saying like, this is the reason? And I'm sure they're not coming out and being honest or saying something that might ring truer to us, the public, which would be them saying, well, we know who did this and we want to protect those people, so close the case. What they're actually saying instead is essentially, if you don't close the case against Charlie Kirk and rule it a lone gunman, then it might mess up our prosecution against Tyler Robinson. That feels a little bit to me like moral blackmail. Hey, man, we're not hiding anything, but we've got this guy, Tyler Robinson. If you don't close this case, then it might harm our chances of locking this guy up. Yeah, I'm sure. I am sure that they are being just moral. I'm sure they're telling the truth to the authorities. Now, I want to remind you guys, we should take a look at their current case against Tyler Robinson to see if we should accept this narrative, because currently, there is absolutely no video which shows Tyler Robinson firing the weapon or even taking aim at Charlie Kirk. In fact, the individual who filmed the footage of the shooter on the roof, the lone video that exists of the shooter on the roof, also told me that he doesn't think that Tyler Robinson is the guy. So how's that going to work for an eyewitness account? When he reported the shooter on the roof to Utah on the campus, he was clear that the person was wearing an entirely different outfit than the ones that they're currently trying to claim that Tyler wore on that day. Remember, Tyler was just supposed to be wearing a t-shirt and some jeans. He says no, he was in tactical gear. The person that I saw was in tactical gear. Also, that eyewitness told me that gun doesn't even match what I saw. And like I said, this individual definitively has experience with guns. He teaches people how to fire guns. So according to him and what he observed, if he's going to be brought into this court case that they're saying they want to, they want to bring charges against Tyler, he's going to testify and say, no, that doesn't look like the gun. That doesn't look like the person. So how's this going to work? Also, according to the individual that told me this, regarding the feds trying to push for this case closure, the feds don't even have any footage that explains how exactly the rifle in particular got onto the roof. That stuns me. That's stunning information, right? Because all we have is, well, in the indictment, he dropped onto the roof at 12:15 p.m. Tyler Robinson just dropped onto the roof. I guess in our minds, we assumed on the basis of the picture that they released the sole picture or set of pictures from the same moment of him walking up the stairs. We assumed that he, like I said, stanky-legged it, the whole stanky leg all the way up onto the rooftop. That was our perception. But it turns out, according to my source, they don't know how the rifle got onto the roof. That's interesting. How are we bringing this to trial? Now, regarding the bullets, the source says that it was too fragmented to match Tyler's rifle, so they don't have even the bullet. And let us not forget that Tyler himself has not confessed to anything. And that part also didn't make sense. They said they brought him in, Bill Ackman puts up $1 million, Tyler's dad gets the sheriff friend to come over, and they say he did it, and the police come and they bring him in, they bring Tyler Robinson in, but Tyler Robinson doesn't confess? So how did you arrest him? Does that make sense? How could you make an arrest if you didn't have a confession? You would have to have evidence, and the evidence can't be trust my dad, bro. You can't, if I just bring in a random person, if I say, oh, look, Skylar just committed this crime, and Skylar says, no, I didn't, and he doesn't confess, the police can't just make an arrest. You can just arrest Skylar. Nothing is making sense at all. It has not made sense from the very beginning, okay? And that's because the feds are involved. And I believe the feds know exactly what happened. In fact, I don't think it's a stretch from imagination when we examine history to assume that they maybe even had some foreknowledge. Not everybody, obviously, because some people are trying to get the information out and are trying to figure out what happened. But we know that there are people that are a part of that apparatus who are terrible human beings, who we do not want ruling over us, and yet they do. So I'm just curious how exactly they believe they are going to convict Tyler Robinson on this. Oh, you know what? It's probably the Discord messages. I forgot, silly me. The Discord, I forgot it was so explicit. How could we forget? Oh, Lance, wherefore art thou, Lance? Deny thy father and refuse thy name? And with thou wilt not, Lance, the bullets, me, my handprints, it was me, my love. I did everything, I carved it. Do you remember, my love, when I was carving the bullets? Yes, exactly this time is when I did it.
Okay, who agrees that we were not aware that Candace Owens had such a personality? So that is really amazing to see her in action here. She brought up some great points. If no one confessed to the murder, if he didn't confess, then why is he in custody, or why is he charged with murder? But let's continue. Let's just continue. It's just the beginning of the video.
And these are the reasons, my MAGA daddy, my love, thou wilt not, my love. Cool story. Very cool story, feds. Kind of feeling like Tyler's going to get off because they've got really nothing but prints. And from my sources, it's not the only set of prints that are on that gun. In fact, the only thing that I have heard that made sense, which did not come from our government, did not come from the feds, did not come from the Utah government, but rather from the people that are on the ground who believe that actually Tyler was just told to walk and drop off his gun at a neighboring house. That for some reason just feels like that might be honest, and that was how he participated in this event. But we'll see, because I'm not going to let this go. So we'll see if the feds tell us to just dismiss it, as they always do. Rather relatedly, something that I wanted to tell you yesterday, we had showed you a clip of Charlie discussing our friendship and how he was feeling morally blackmailed over it. And in that same clip, he mentions a very fond memory that I have, that he was there when I met my husband, and he says it's a really fun story. And it is a fun story. It's actually a totally fun, crazy story of how I met my husband, because I had something that came over me, and that's the only way I can describe it. And I get all of the conspiracies online when people were like, there's no way her and her husband got engaged after 18 days. That's exactly how it happened. Okay. I didn't know him. I never even saw his face 18 days prior. And I'm with Charlie. We're hitting the ground running. And I'm just like, I feel compelled that we must go to the UK. It was, when I say, the most overpowering thing ever. I was like, Charlie, we got to go to the UK. We got to go to the UK. We should go to the UK. We should go to London. And he's like, man, why? Why do you want to go to London? I'm like, I don't know. I just feel like we're supposed to be there. I feel like we've got to be there for an event. And I did something that I had never done. I took Charlie Kirk's credit card, and I was like, I'm going to find flights and just book it. And then you just figure out, maybe it means we're supposed to start Turning Point UK. If there's energy there, that was a part of his vision. He wanted Turning Point to be global, and he had people that were interested in the UK. And so I'm showing you this very old text message chain from that time between me and Charlie, where I never looked at flights, but I booked these flights. And I was like, look, the flights are dirt cheap. Remember NYC to London, $450 in coach, or $1,200 in first class. And he's like, wow, let's book it. All right. We booked the flights. And then suddenly I realized the reason that I had this overwhelming feeling to be there was because I was supposed to be my husband. And the only thing I can say is that it was an intuition. We describe it, that it had to have been God. We had just had no other reason to be there. And then Charlie set up a speaking event with some people that had been interested. And sure enough, we were there to help Turning Point UK get set up. Anyways, this overwhelming feeling, I had never experienced something like that since, until about a week before, or actually 10 days before Charlie got assassinated. And so I'm going to explain that to you, because you guys who watch this podcast might have realized something, that we took the show off air randomly for the first couple of days in September. So I will describe to you exactly what happened. There at first was a elementary school shooting that happened at a Catholic school, and I was just concerned in a way that I had never felt so impacted. And I was going, something isn't right. Something is just not right. And I felt that there was some sort of an infiltration that was happening at schools. And the best way that I can describe it in a sentence is that I sensed that the danger wasn't stopping there, and that more was coming, and that I needed to take time to take a look at just the process of hiring people at the school that my children were going to attend. And I did just a cursory online search, and some messages I found, which were not written by a teacher at the school, but someone who was adjacent to some teachers at the school, gave me pause for concern. In fact, explicitly what it was a Polish underground symbol, like a Polish communist underground symbol that nobody would have recognized outside of people who know what it meant. And I just sort of went, okay, that's weird. I kept looking online, and strangely, I'm not kidding, and I'm going to show you these messages, I came across what looked to me like a bunch of people talking about bees. You're going, like literally bees. Okay. In a way that the only way I can describe it to you is like they were speaking about bees, but they weren't speaking about bees. It was very coded. And I'm going, am I going crazy? Or do you think that all these people are really actually, quote unquote, bee farmers, or saying that they farm bees? What is this lingo that I'm not understanding? Why do I feel like it's related to students? I didn't feel good about it at all. And I just sensed that we needed to get more involved, to go to the school, to ask about the process of hiring, to see if they needed more security. They were kind of giving up me the thing that teachers do now when you ask any questions about what happens at the school, which is they make you think like, why do you want to know? Like, we just do whatever we want to do. It's like, I don't know. My children are like 5 and 4, actually. Parents should, of course, we need to be more involved. Like, how did we get here that we feel like we're crazy for asking questions about the hiring practices at schools? And the feeling just didn't go away. I can show you this actually, because I was thinking, like, I said to my husband, there is some weird underground, it's like I sense like imminent danger is coming. And for some reason, I feel like there is an underground that has emerged at schools, and it's like related to bees. That's what I said. And I messaged multiple people about this, my sister. Here are a couple of more text messages to other people. You can look at the time frame here. This is 8:30, August 30th. This is September 1st when we went off air. September 2nd, we were off air. And I started talking about people that were discussing bees in a way that didn't make sense. I'm like, I don't know if this is drugs. I don't know what it is, but it's weird. And so in a sentence, I just said, there's imminent danger coming, okay? It is relating to a school. I think it's a communist underground, and I don't know why, but it has something to do with bees. Totally sensible thing to say to your husband. Oh, and we need to hire more security. And we did. We hired more security that very week. And I was just frantic about it. And we made the decision that we needed to homeschool immediately and started the process, pulled our kids out of homeschooling and starting to interview people. But it wasn't enough. Like, despite hiring more security, despite taking my kids out of school, I still had a sense of dread. The Tuesday night, the night before Charlie got assassinated, I had book club, and I felt like I needed to emphasize to people in book club that it was time to take their kids out of school. Like, take your kids out of school. Danger is happening right now. And I'm going to show you a clip. Obviously, this is all behind the paywall of what I said to people that are in the book club. Take a listen. I'm homeschooling my kids. I'm so excited. I'm like very excited I'm embarking on this. Recent decision. And it is just, I can't explain to you when a weight got lifted off of my shoulders, because I was like, I can't just speak about this. Like, we have to do it and show people that it can be done. And I'm so glad that my sister who did it first, because I was like, my sister, it was very difficult for her to do this. She's got to wake up super early, but seeing her do it made me go, my older sister, I was like, what is wrong with me? Of course I can do this. And again, this weight being lifted off of my shoulders of like, you don't get my kids. This whole system, this whole matrix, got to send your kids to school so we can what? Indoctrinate them mentally. In some schools, there's abuses that are happening, like, and I just have to take the risk and give you my child, like my small child, and then you're gonna gaslight me. This is what happened, actually. I was like asking the school basic questions, like, because I was only gonna put them in, like, a little daycare program, pre-K program, and like I was like, ask questions like, how do you hire people? And they were like, you don't get to ask those questions. What's wrong with you, Mom? Why are you so scared? I'm like, okay. Bye-bye. See you never. Don't make me think that I'm weird for being a mom. Okay? Don't make me believe or try to sell to me this idea that we're sharing these kids. These are your students, these are my kids. And if you don't understand that, then they can't be your students. That's it. That was on September 9th. Okay? Agreed. Then came September 10th. Obviously, Charlie lost his life. And a few days later, I was told, and I sensed instantly that there was like a hive of people that were involved in this. I just knew it. And when it happened, I just went, oh my goodness. And my gut is telling me that this was the thing, that the dread that I sensed that was coming out of school. And I had no idea. I am not a flag person at all. And then someone told me, and I was astonished, that Utah recently, extraordinarily, modernized their bee flag. I had no idea that the Utah state flag is a hexagonal beehive, right? And unbeknownst to me, that it has always been the beehive state. So in 2024, they modernized their flag, but they've always been known as the beehive state. And to be clear, it's not because they make honey. It's not because they have a high presence of bees. In fact, in terms of making honey or bee-related products, they rank number 24. It's actually the beehive state. It relates to the Mormon church, the Church of Latter-day Saints. Early Mormon pioneers founded that state, and they liked the idea of a beehive working toward a common good. Now, if that sounds vaguely familiar or communist to you, the idea of worker bees, yes, that's where it's from. So this sort of doom that I had about an underground happening, I was just like totally freaked out. It's a Soviet symbol, like the idea of making everybody into a worker bee. And whether you're on the left or the right, you should understand where the public school system comes from. Okay, it is shaped by Soviet ideology. I tell people a must-read book is Inside the American Education System by Thomas Sowell. It is not left or right. He is just telling you how it all came together. The decline, the deception, the dogmas, and how they are programming our children. You cannot unread that book after you read it, because you realize there's no such thing as being too hawkish. They know how to get things in there and how to pull children away from their parents, as it was designed in the Soviet system. Okay. Kindergarten, you're like, where does that word even come from? Well, it was established by the communists that tried to overthrow Germany and failed in 1848. Margaret Schurz's, her family came here, and those same communists wanted to make sure that they established kindergarten access to children. They then fought to make sure that we federalized the education system. These are the same people that pushed to make it so that homeschooling is not a thing, right? Like I said, the very reason they wanted to establish public education is because it is essential for radical ideology. They understand something that I think that we have maybe forgotten, which is that children are the most precious resource. The reason for that is because they are the future. One way or another, children are the future, okay? After Charlie's assassination, that feeling still did not dissipate, okay? I understood the imminent doom that I felt that was almost crippling was clearly related to that event, but I just know that all of these random lone shooter narratives that are being intentionally, what we're being told that they're just lone shooters and then we don't really know anything else. I just feel it spiritually that these people are being programmed, and perhaps that is the reason why more often than not, they are being protected by our government. In other words, it is positively foolish for us to believe that the government just cannot tell us anything about these assassins. They wipe everything and they tell us nothing. Why would they do that? Yeah, and that guy, they're always working alone. There's no online history that we can reflect on. What are you talking about? Which brings me to Thomas Matthew Crooks, because that's exactly what we were told or not told when on July 13th, 2024, a 20-year-old Thomas Matthew Crooks climbs onto a roof and tries to assassinate President Donald Trump. Gratefully, Donald Trump did not die, but tragically, one of his supporters did, okay? A 50-year-old firefighter named Corey Comparatore lost his life trying to save his children. And then we were told virtually nothing. In fact, we were, and I'm laughing here because it's so absurd, we were told Iran did this. What? Because they were itching for war with Iran. Like, they're still itching for war with Iran, but like that's what basically was a narrative that was established. They had some warnings that Iran was going to try to assassinate Trump, and we're going, what? Well, guess what happened? Somebody reached out to me because I have been obviously leading the forefront in investigating this lone shooter as it pertains to Charlie Kirk, because it's not a lone shooter. It's a hive. I feel it spiritually.
Oh, wow.
And they said, look, actually, I had been able to scrape everything about Thomas Crooks before the feds got rid of everything. And it's shocking what you look at. There is no way this person was not on the federal radar. Now, usually we go, was he on the left? Was he on the right? Because that's the bait. The bait is to make me as a conservative hate you if you were on the left. And if you were on the left, the goal is to make you hate Candace because it allows them to operate in broad daylight. The reality of Thomas Crooks is going to be a story that we should get familiar with. He was at both on the left and on the right. He actually traded sides. He started actually as a Trump supporter. I'm going to show you, and again, to really impress upon you how much this person had to be on the federal radar. I have an 80-page document, which I'm thinking I'm just going to drop on my website tomorrow after handing it over to legal, of all of the accounts that he made, all of the statements that he made. And he was at first very angry against the left. Like, I mean, outwardly calling for the murder of people that are on the left. And there were videos that he was posting of himself shooting with no bullets in the gun in his bedroom. I'm going to show you one of those videos that's since been scraped. Don't worry, we blurred the weapon just, to keep things above bar here. Take a look. Now, if you're listening to this and you are on Spotify, essentially, or on Apple, what's essentially happening here is he's just in his room and there's no bullets in it, but he's practicing firing a weapon. And his online history, there's multiple videos that are like this, which I have. His online history shows he was extraordinarily violent. He was always calling for violence. And I can show you one of his comments that he made. This was a comment on a video Trump humiliated on national TV. And he wrote to someone, haha, that's funny because I always believed being patriotic was lining up a bunch of socialist Jews like the ones that booed Trump and blasting their useless brains out with an AR. Well, to each his own. I mean, that's unbelievably violent. Again, another comment where he was commenting on a YouTube video. He wrote, I've noticed a lot of liars talking about the truth in this post. Well, let me tell you some truth. Every one of the Trump-hating Democrats deserves to have their heads chopped off and put on stakes for the world to see what happens when you F with America. So you go, okay, this guy was a Trump supporter. Then he does a radical transformation around 2020. And this had something to do with COVID. He got very angry at Trump and he was outwardly saying things where people were reporting them on YouTube being like, this guy is absolutely insane. He is a maniac. He's a maniac. He was a maniac who was obsessed with Trump one way or the other. And then he went very much, obviously, which is the reason why he tried to assassinate him post-COVID. He just starts going completely crazy and he is explicitly researching on Google the history of these assassinations. I can show you his search history here. Leading up to this, he searched best places for a mass shooting. Here are some of his other Google searches. I think we can just scroll down here. Yeah, okay. And this has a timeline on this. Again, I'm going to probably just post this document because you can handle the truth. He was fascinated with this stuff. He was fascinated. You can see here, guns versus protesters, Orlando shooting reaction, cars running over protesters, firing an AR-15 as fast as possible, fertilizer bomb. How do you use a tourniquet? How to make a Molotov cocktail, how to make Molotov cocktails, pardon me, mixing gasoline with styrofoam, mass shooting Canada, Oklahoma bombing, sniper in Dallas shooting. You want me to believe on the basis of what I have seen that this individual wasn't on federal radar? Just wasn't on federal radar? Guys, that is a nonsense, okay? That is an absolute nonsense. And again, the other element of this is we're never going to be told what therapists he was seeing, okay? What his mom's walking in the room, he's practicing how to shoot. It's very clear what you can see in the background. He's practicing shots. They want us to believe that this just happened by accident, even though for years he was documenting wanting to harm politicians and people that were on the left and people that were on the right. Again, on the basis of everything, whether it was their race, their color, whether they were homosexual, there's something there for everyone. So what's happening here? Well, I can tell you my suspicion. I think that this is a program. I do. I don't know, but I know. You know? Okay. I don't know, but I know. Because it is giving me the same ick that I had when I was looking through the period and learning the reality of what happened throughout the 1960s when MK Ultra, when that program was running. And I have no reason to believe that that program was ever discontinued. And I believe that they find these candidates in schools. I really do. I think they find these candidates in schools. And so I wanted to express that to you, that we, once again, are having a predicament, and we can trace it to when JFK was assassinated, where the feds are obscuring. They are using journalists to obscure. They are putting pressure on government officials. They are lying to the public about everything, except this time it's regarding Charlie Kirk, which means this time it's not going to fly because I'm not going to allow it to. Let's take a pause here and we're going to get to something that Megyn Kelly shared on her show about a hex that was put on Charlie Kirk, which is important for us to discuss for a variety of reasons. First, I'm going to throw it to some sponsors. Riverbend Ranch, I absolutely love them. Everyone has wanted to do something to try and heal and remember Charlie Kirk. Well, my friends at Riverbend Ranch put together the following tribute to honor him. Take a listen.
We pay tribute to Charlie Kirk, and we celebrate the tremendous good he did in his life. Charlie courageously advocated for the sacred principles of freedom, constructive discourse, truth, family values, and common sense. He taught with humor and wisdom, and backed up his beliefs with data and facts. He set a powerful example of reaching out and talking to those who disagreed with him. We mourn his passing, but what he taught us continues to resonate with even more power.
A message from all of us at Riverbend Ranch.
I said I met the owner of Riverbend Ranch before he was making steaks, actually, with Charlie. And so another Charlie memory there for you. And now things years later, and I'm reading ads for them on the show. Great people. Also want to remind you guys about the Wellness Company because it is flu season, which means it's also flu shot season. After everything we've been through over the past 5 years, the number of people that are getting the flu shot is at a record low. Yay. Not to mention the fact that according to the CDC's own data, the flu shot is moderately effective at best, and that's not even accounting for all the vaccine injuries. There is a much better way to stay healthy. You can grab a contagion emergency kit from the Wellness Company. If you wake up with a sore throat or a runny nose, you can address your symptoms immediately with doctor-prescribed kit containing ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine, generic Z-Pack, and much more. It's like having an urgent care in your own home. I have a contagion emergency kit, of course. Got it from the Wellness Company because sport has been created, left versus right. And Jimmy Kimmel delivered a monologue and thanked people on the right in his very Jimmy Kimmel way. And I got a shout out for saying, hey, common sense, the government should not be getting involved when it comes to speech. That's insane. We cannot cheer that on. Take a listen to his monologue.
I want to thank the people who don't support my show and what I believe, but support my right to share those beliefs anyway. People who I never would have imagined, like Ben Shapiro, Clay Travis, Candace Owens, Mitch McConnell, Rand Paul, even my old pal Ted Cruz, who, believe it or not, said something very beautiful on my behalf.
I hate what Jimmy Kimmel said. I am thrilled that he was fired.
Oh, wait, no, not that. The other part.
But let me tell you, if the government gets in the business of saying,
what you
we
can
don't
and can't
like
say
what you, the media, have said, we're going to ban you from the airwaves if you don't say what we like. That will end up bad for conservatives.
I don't think I've ever said this before, but Ted Cruz is right. He's absolutely right. This affects all of us, including him. I mean, think about it. If Ted Cruz can't speak freely, then he can't cast spells on the Smurfs. Even though I don't agree with many of those people on most subjects, some of the things they say even make me want to throw up. It takes courage for them to speak out against this administration, and they did, and they deserve credit for it, and thanks.
Feeling is mutual. There are some things you say that make me want to throw up as well. But it is important that we realize government overreach is government overreach. Doesn't matter who it's happening under, whether it's Biden or whether it's Trump, it's wrong, okay? And by the way, both sides have been guilty of government overreach. So less of us taking the bait on that. I also want to say, I wanted to show you guys this clip of Megyn Kelly. It's gone pretty viral. It's everywhere, speaking about something that I did not know about, which is pertaining to a hex and a curse that Charlie Kirk and Erica Kirk were worried about. It's kind of a very shocking story. And I just want to preempt this by saying that for those of you that don't understand that this is a spiritual war that we are fighting. You might have been like me years ago, and I referred to us as the Muggles. Of course, there are people who believe in all of this stuff, and there are people who put spells on people, and they are meaningful. They follow numerology, and it's serious. That is serious, and you think that it's not because they have made our society so plastic and there's no substance anymore, and we are so distracted. But these people who rule over us, okay, they know who they worship. They know they worship Luciferianism. And so I was very alarmed that this had happened. And I honestly had wished that Charlie had reached out to me, even though they did end up consulting a Catholic priest. I didn't expect, I wish I could have given them the exact person. But take a listen to how Megyn Kelly shares what happened, a curse that was put on Charlie just before he went out to UVU.
I learned when I was out in Arizona last week that 2 weeks before Charlie Kirk was assassinated, the far-left website Jezebel declared that it had a mission to cast bad luck or a curse on Charlie. They wanted to hurt him in some way. They declared, quote, if the far-right misogynist with a bad haircut wants to villainize independent women, Jezebel is more than happy to be the hag of his nightmares. And they went on to the website Etsy, yes, Etsy, to, quote, cast a curse on him. Yes, this is actually a thing. Etsy, the website known for making arts and crafts on demand, will happily cast a hex through its witches, who you can hire, on someone if you ask them to. Erica and Charlie Kirk heard about these curses, and that news genuinely rattled Erica in particular. She knew Christian teaching on this subject. She loved Charlie, absolutely. And she was scared when she heard of the curses Jezebel had called up. So much so that she and Charlie contacted a friend, who I believe she said was a Catholic priest, but definitely a friend, and asked him to come over and pray with them over Charlie the night before he was murdered. She eventually worked it through, and so did Charlie. That, as she later told me, weapons will form but not prosper. That Satan and those witches have no power. That Satan and those witches have no power.
Wow.
So just to add a little color to the story, I think that the people who did this and what we've learned about those women is I think they were probably who hired, people that did the hiring were probably trying to be funny. People that don't believe in spiritual forces were probably just like, LOL, it's like Vice. It's like, Vice publication. Like, I smoked a blunt and, listened to the Beatles music backwards. Like, it's like they don't take that stuff seriously. So they're trying to be like, haha, funny headline, right? And the person who wrote the article about it said, I'm not calling on dark forces to cause him harm. I just want him to wake up every morning with an inexplicable zit, right? So she's probably trying to be funny, to be fair, but contacted witches who are not trying to be funny. That's the problem when people don't understand that this stuff is real, that you're saying to a witch, yeah, I'll pay for you. I'm going to reach out to you to pay for you to put a curse on Charlie. And that witch did that. And it brought, obviously you can see, they were distressed by this. They consulted a Catholic priest who I assume would have immediately conducted an exorcism. That probably should have been done in the Latin rite. But I feel like that's just something that people should know, because until something happens to you spiritually, you tend not to believe in these things. And like I said, that's a part of this. They very much know what religion they follow. The numbers, the numerology, it makes sense to them. The people that are in control of this world. And you should just be very cautious of that stuff. A lot of times I kind of give this example. It's like they can sell us anything as reality. Like, we are now in this culture of what C.S. Lewis refers to as scientism. As long as they say like it's science, it's not weird, then we don't realize that, no, I think these are spiritual forces. Like if a witch was like, ha, here's a potion, take it, it works, you'd be like, oh, that's so crazy, I don't believe in witch potions. But like a doctor can create something and it makes you, and you're like, oh, of course, but this is like backed by science. It's like, okay, by any other name sort of a thing, you know what I mean? But this stuff is real, and I'm glad that the end result thus far of how it has impacted society to watch Charlie be assassinated, even though we don't know who exactly was behind this, we know it was more than one person, is that people are going back to church, and that they had that instinct when they watched it. They suddenly realized, whoa, they got hit spiritually, even if they hadn't been to church in years. I was getting comments, I haven't been to church in 20 years. And for some reason, watching the death of Charlie Kirk made me know that I needed to go to church. That is at least one thing in this. And there have been other things that has made me very happy. Anyways, I want to make sure I have time for your comments, because we do have book club tonight, and I'm going to build upon what we're speaking over these last 2 weeks. This book we're reading is very important, the Assault on Truth. And so much of rereading this book is reminding me of what is happening with Charlie Kirk and how we're being lied to about everything and how evil the people are that are doing the lying. It's an important book because you have to know what these people are capable of. First, we're going to read a couple of sponsors. Home Title Lock. If you are a homeowner, you should listen to this, because the FBI has been warning homeowners interest rates, and that is good news for America. Take control. Call American Finance. Dive right in to A Shot in the Dark. And you guys will have book club in a little bit here. It might be about 10 minutes late to book club. I hope that's okay. And also, our Spanish YouTube is live. You guys have been asking for that. Spanish YouTube is live. Gandas, Owens, and Espanol. That's it. At Gandas, Owens, and Espanol. So, happy.
Okay, so let's just take a deep dive in some of the conversations that Candace brought to our attention, whether it's FBI conspiracy, whether the right and left are constantly fighting with each other, so work can be done by the FBI. Now, I am not in the business of criticizing the FBI. I do have a lot of faith in our legal system. I am not really a conspiracy theorist, not to say that Candace is. But I don't really get into the FBI is creating a scenario that may or may not be true. And as for the person who assassinated, because that's what it was assassination of Charlie Kirk, I do think that people are pushed to the limit sometimes. I think people do stuff out of their own self-interest of, oh, I want to make history. And so they set up these situations like the young man did, and they do something that's very heinous, and it's very unfortunate. And it's very unfortunate that Charlie Kirk was a sacrificial lamb in this particular situation. Definitely uncalled for. I don't believe Charlie Kirk ever spoke hate. I think he was just giving a different perspective on, different situations here different situations here in the U.S. And I think that's something that has to be celebrated. You have to celebrate someone giving you a different point of view. And it's okay. It's okay if we differ, but we have to make sure that even when we have different point of views, that at the end of the day, the American value, again, as I said yesterday, is what's more important. No matter what you believe or what you think, does it align with the American values? And if we don't know what our American values are, then that causes a lot of issues here within this country. So, do we have the person that killed Charlie Kirk? Like I said, I don't believe in conspiracy theories, but in this particular situation, I truly don't believe one person set up to kill Charlie Kirk. I do believe that there are multiple people involved. Again, I am not here to attack the FBI or any law enforcement. I am 100% in support of all law enforcement because I think they do an amazing job. And shout out to everyone in ICE. There was an attack on the ICE facility, and we'll get into that on another day. There's a lot of attacks on police officers that are unwarranted, in my opinion. And again, with the FBI. So, but in this situation, based on information, not just only given by Candace, but if you're following the story and if you're looking at various angles of the video in which, unfortunately, again, Charlie Kirk was assassinated, it does appear that this was a job that included multiple people. And it's not just one person. The fact that, and I'll piggyback again on what Candace had previously stated in one of her videos, is that you had one person come forward and said that he did it, and then it's like, oh no, that's not the person. We have another person, and the guy has not confessed or did not initially confess. And then if you just start looking at the history, like who really texts someone and tell them step by step what they did? It's like you made a full confessional to your partner. That just doesn't make any sense. It's not even logical, right? And then there's other videos as well. So the goal here, I think, with Charlie Kirk is for us to really be detectives for our country. We can't always expect, and we should have high standards, but maybe the FBI isn't getting it right, and whether or not they're pressuring the state of Utah to close the case. Again, that is something that Candace brought up and something that we should keep in mind. Maybe it's something that, I will investigate myself going forward to see what is the process. Once the FBI have someone in custody, have a person of interest, or have the actual suspect, is it time for the state to move on? Do we just move on? And what does moving on looks like? What are we really saying when we move on, when we say the case is closed, we found Charlie Kirk's assassinator, because it was an assassin, and how do we really move on? What does that look like? What does it look like for the state of Utah that this horrific event happened in your state? And so for me, I just want to make sure that we are all sure that we have the only person involved in Charlie Kirk's assassination. We don't need to find out later that it was a group of people, which again, I do wholeheartedly believe it was. It's just too much evidence out there, too much footage, I'll say that has, circulated throughout the media that isn't being discussed. And it's really interesting, like, are we putting all the pieces together? Because we need to make sure everyone that participated in this horrific act is brought to justice. It's only right. Charlie Kirk was an amazing man. He was a unifier. Some people don't agree, but I do. And I think he tried his best to unify. He tried his best to understand both sides and present a picture of what America is supposed to look like, what we stand on, our values, correct? And that is something that we have to constantly reiterate in this world. What are the American values? What do we stand for? What are we going to focus on? And anything that is outside of our values has to be removed from our system. And that brings us to another topic that Candace just brought up. Homeschooling your kids. The public school is just becoming unsafe. And not unsafe just because a mass shooter could show up, but unsafe because of the ideology that is being taught. I homeschool my son because I truly felt, because again, I just think there's too many women teachers, and that's maybe something I will explore. And they want the young men to just sit down and cross their legs, and I'm just not for that. Boys are supposed to be active. Study shows that boys learn when they move about, and they have a lot of energy. And when you're in these schools and your kids are, and again, we're not against any particular group, but your kid is coming home with rainbow pins and rainbow little trinkets of things to indicate the gay community, that is not something I want my child to embrace. Yes, you can live your life, but that can't be forced upon my children. And it's not fair. And it's not fair that we are being put in positions as parents to follow anyone's doctrine. Like there's a standard, again, an American value, and that has to be followed. And you cannot bring in and teach our children whatever you want to teach them outside of what they're supposed to be learning. And again, boys are supposed to be boys. They're not supposed to sit with their legs crossed. And if anybody out there want to comment, feel free to comment at any time. And I totally agree with her. I totally agree that there needs to be a mass exodus out of the public school system. For any of you all who may have children, grandchildren, things have to change. It's too much evil. It's too much abuse. I just saw recently where there was a guy who looked very suspicious. He was spraying very foul odor throughout the school, and it's like, you are a 30-year-old man. You're not a teenager. You're not a little kid. Why are you doing this? Why are you behaving as if you are a minor? And that's very concerning. It's very concerning. And another point that Candace brought up is asking people, how do you go about hiring your teachers, your educators? And if you're getting a very weird response, pushback, where someone is telling you, why are you so concerned? I'm concerned because I'm entrusting you with my children for a good 6-7 hours during the day. And I have to make sure my children are being taught by people who are credible, people who have been through a very thorough background check, because now we're seeing it's not. And there's just so much abuse that is just happening in the school, whether the teachers are calling the kids names, the teachers are provoking the kids to anger, because unfortunately there's a lot of adults that just really lacks emotional intelligence. And that is just something that if teachers don't have, they don't need to be in the school system. They don't need to be educators. And a lot of educators are not really in there for the right reasons. Some of them couldn't find jobs in the public sector, so now they are forced to just teach. So they have no desire, they don't love it, they resent what they're doing, and so that resentment is poured on to our children. And then your children are engaging in activities that you're just not comfortable with. And even for me as a mother, it's like, no, my son shouldn't do anything like this. He's a boy. He's supposed to be able to jump, just act like a boy, not sit down with his legs crossed. That is not what we want. And so when you see these things happening, you do have to wonder, should our kids be in the public schools? And what is happening? And why are we not questioning who's teaching our kids? Like, how do you hire? What criteria are you all looking for? And what do you base the success of the teacher on, if that particular educator is productive, if they're doing their jobs? How do you all determine this? And this is just something that we as Americans have to understand. Or some teachers or educators, I'll say that, are bringing in their own religious doctrine, trying to incorporate that into their lessons, and having your children believe in other religion that goes against, again, the American value, Christianity. And what are we doing about it as parents? Are we just going to allow it to happen, or do we say, enough is enough? If you have, like, some educators are constantly complaining about parents and the students, and it's as if, okay, these are the people. Having students is the reason why you have a job. It's the reason why you can pay your bills. And if you're going to sit around and complain about it, then yes, maybe we should all pull our kids out and homeschool our kids. Because honestly, test scores across America is extremely low. I mean, extremely low. And we have to think, why is it? Why are some kids not able to read on grade level? My son does extremely well in reading and comprehension, but there's so many kids on his grade level that can't form a sentence. They can't read a basic one-syllable words at sometimes, and it's very heartbreaking to even acknowledge that. It's like, wow, so what are we doing all day? And what are we doing in school where kids are not reading at least on grade level? Not even requiring, oh my God, them to read above grade level. And so that is just something, again, that has to be discussed, that has to be talked about. And to further pinpoint some of her conversations, and again, we'll get into it more, let's talk about the evil spirits, the witchcraft, and how people can release evil spirits on you, and how you do have to seek spiritual guidance to have those type of demons, demonic spirits removed out of your life, removed from around you, because if you don't, you will be attacked. And how do you all feel? Do you feel that we are in a spiritual warfare? I really do think so as well. I think that is something that Charlie was trying to convey in his debates around the world, that we are in a spiritual warfare, and that we have to be prepared to take our country back, to make sure that the American values is what we're supposed to be focused on. And so that is something that I hold dear to myself. I think in this segment with Candace, she brought out a lot of great points, and I think we're going to use some of these points to further discuss and to do a deep dive in some of her great points and have a conversation amongst ourselves. Like, what do we really think about this? And this is for anyone who's up at night and just need opportunity to have a conversation about any topic that is causing them some sort of anxiety, keeping you up at night because you think you're the only one, and you're not. You're not the only one that's worried about your children and their safety while going to school. You're not the only one who feels, oh my God, if I'm a Christian and I don't agree with people, changing their sex, that there's something wrong with me, when it's actually no, they're the problems, not us. It's okay to say I am not comfortable with what the investigation of Charlie Kirk. I think it's more people. I don't think it's just one shooter that attacked him. I think there is not even a conspiracy, but truly there's more to this than what we're being told. And again, based on all the footage we have, there's almost endless proof that it could not have been one person. So these are some of the things that we will continue to talk about. I really enjoyed this segment by Candace. Again, shout out to Candace Owens for always just giving us a different perspective. We don't always have to agree with her either, but it's always good to listen, to learn from someone who has been in this space for years and who has, to me, one of the more credibility than almost anyone out there. And we're going to do other videos as well. I really love Tucker Carlson. I think he's amazing as well. So we'll be reviewing some of his videos, and we're just going to, again, have conversations that are concerning to us, and how can we strategize and mobilize and really execute something to make a great change, again, for our children, our community. So until then, I'm signing off. Thank you for tuning in. Again, remember to like, share, subscribe. Always hit the notification bell so you will be informed when I drop another video. And remember, always remain curious, stay bold, and I'll see you in the next video. Everyone have a good night, and thank you.